What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Happy Hour Hoops, the Triple H podcast. We got a good episode here today. We're talking KD, talking Donovan Mitchell, talking the newest Chet Holmgren injury, which is a bummer. We'll get into all of that, but right now we got Stevie, Jake, myself, Dunny here to kick it off. And guys, let's start with what we've been talking about all summer long here, and hopefully the last time we talk about it. Maybe Kevin Durant switches his mind one more time,
Oh, he
but
will.
yeah, we're at the point where I want to say that it's over, but even when I just said that, it didn't even seem real, even though I was trying to be truthful. But yes, we have the report from Shams that Kevin Durant, Joe Tsai, and the entire Nets organization have presumably worked things out. And Kevin Durant not only plans to be a Brooklyn Net next season, but finish out his contract in which he signed pen to paper and it already agreed to. So it looks like we have some normalcy in the KD situation. I don't know. What do you guys think here? Is this the
It's
last
just
of it?
funny the way you have to explain it. Like someone said it earlier, it's like KD agreed to continue his contractually obligated
Right.
whatever his situation with the Nets. Like it's crazy that it's new. The boardroom thing is still so funny. I know everybody's mentioned that. Like Rosillo mentioned it yesterday. Pop PMT mentioned it. It was the first thing I mentioned to you guys yesterday too. I was like, how ridiculous is it that Katie's podcast is on this post? Like
Yeah.
it's just but that's like a microcosm of how he's clearly viewing whatever relationship they've got going on and what he thinks of their standing with each other and everything else. And clearly, I guess what the Nets think of it too. They've got to be looking at him as some sort of power in this, even though he didn't have enough power to get traded. But really, like when we're looking at it, he had 4 years. There wasn't a trade for the insane asking price that they wanted. And what else can you do if you're Kevin Durant? Like you said last time, Donnie, dude we know he wants to play basketball. So
Right.
like it has to come to a head at some point. So this is like, I feel like this should have been the most predictable ending, but maybe it just was caught up in the chaos the whole summer of hearing all the different reports and everything. Most interesting thing coming out of it though is like, what the hell is this team going to look like next week now? Like Steve Nash, his star player wanted to get him fired. Now they're both going to be back. Like it's a little awkward, a little bit.
It's not good for team chemistry. It really isn't. I mean, the big thing is at the end of the day, right? When Kevin Durant's on the floor and healthy, he's a top 5 player in the league. So I'm sure the Nets, even though probably reluctantly, are very happy to have him back on their team. The whole thing with Kevin Durant that I think is a little different than some of these, drama queen superstars is he does want to play basketball. So I didn't think, and I think we talked about this last week, we didn't really see a situation or scenario where Kevin Durant just wasn't going to play on the year, even if he didn't get traded. I'm glad that it's came out already that, hey, he's going to play for the Nets. He's going to stay with the Nets. But Donnie, I think you said it earlier. Can we really trust this? Is he not going to flip flop? Because with Kevin Durant, I wouldn't be surprised if next week we're like, oh, there's more trade rumors circulating around Durant. Maybe one of these teams that has been in the Durant rumors before comes out saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we will give a little more. Maybe we will give a little more that the Nets want for KD, and then we're right back where we started. So, I mean, the one thing we know about Kevin Durant is he does want to play basketball. Who it's for, I'm not going to say he's 100% playing for the Nets this year, but at least right now, we have some closure. Kevin Durant is a Brooklyn Net, and he will play for him. But I don't know if I can trust it.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's a weird situation, and yeah, I like that you brought up the Steve Nash thing, Jake, and I like that you brought up the chemistry, Steve, because at the end of the day, like, yes, ultimately, I guess this is a positive for the Nets in the grand scheme of things, but that was a major issue, before the situation last season. I mean, yes, they lost to the Celtics. I don't think the talent on that Brooklyn Nets team should have been swept by the Boston Celtics roster. Like that, there was obviously bigger problems than not being able to stop Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. This was a team who already had chemistry issues. You throw a guy like Ben Simmons into the mix, who has had chemistry issues with teammates and coaches in the past, and has a lot of his own stuff going on at the moment. It just basketball wise, best possible outcome has happened. KD returned. They have a championship roster. They continued to get veteran pieces even when KD was going through all this. And they have a legit roster. They have championship level talent and they're starting five and coming off the bench. And they have a guy in Ben Simmons who hasn't played with these two superstars, but it seems like it's a perfect fit. At the end of the day, it's like, what the hell do we actually expect here? I mean, we've all three of us love professional sports. We've seen this before. We've seen uber talented teams that burn out because of stuff like this. And we already caught a glimpse of it last year. They've only added, more headaches, if you will. I don't know. I get it. I get how good they are. I mean, I don't think other talented teams in the East should be scared of this Nets team, though. Should they still be, a title contender? Should we still have them in that conversation? Absolutely, because of the way their roster looks. Should any other contender be scared? I don't think so.
They were the first place team in the league or the East last year before he got hurt, though. I know the chemistry is crazy, but the chemistry was crazy last year too. But that's for completely different reasons. Obviously, I think this is worse than last year, even if we were talking like vaccines and everything else last year, and that was such a hot topic. But this feels worse than last year. This is like actual basketball reasons.
Yeah.
And they were healthy last year too. Once the playoffs rolled around, and they did, they got the short end of the stick having to play the Celtics in the first round.
Yeah.
The way they looked,
they
in that
gave
first
up
round,
though.
I think anyone in the East would have beat them in that first round.
They rolled over.
Agreed. Yeah, they didn't look like the Brooklyn Nets we expected to see, because we were talking about that was going to be the best series of the first round.
If they win game one, though, if they win game one, it's different. It is. I think that Jason Tatum shot at the game one was just like where they were like, fuck this. Like,
he murdered their confidence.
Really. But I think that's the thing too going into this year. If we get, and let's just say, just 75%, right? 3/4 of the games with KD and Kyrie playing together, it doesn't matter who else is around them. That's a good basketball team. That's two of the most talented basketball players in the league right now still. And I get they have a ton of chemistry issues, but if KD and Kyrie can just, kind of suck it up and say, hey, we do want to play basketball together, that what we've been planning for the past couple of years, they're still going to be a good team. They're still a playoff team. But my biggest thing is I just can't trust that right now. I can't trust that nothing's going to happen in the regular season. And this is excluding injuries. Let's just say they're both healthy all year long. There's still question marks of, is he going to be checked in for this season? Or do they want out? If they start off slow in their first 20 games, who's not to say that they're like, all right, I want out of the Nets. This didn't work. So I just can't trust it. Even though Durant is coming back to the Nets, it's one of those things where, I don't know. I used to get really hyped for Durant and playing with Kyrie, especially when it first came with Brooklyn. And now it's just like, all right, I've seen this song and dance way too many times. If you're going to play basketball, but I know he's going to flip flop.
Well, now the Kyrie thing is super interesting too, because he's on a 1 year, he's on an expiring. Like if it really blows up, that's one of the biggest trade pieces in the league this year, no matter what, if they wanted it to be. And who knows what KD would feel about that in that situation. So yeah, it's definitely a different dynamic.
All right, so we've talked about the internal with the Brooklyn Nets. Now let's talk about the kind of what this KD effect has had on the entire league all summer. I know there's some Celtic stuff I want to address, but let's get to Pat Bev calling out Kevin Durant, and he did it in a more abrupt and direct way. But Jake, I feel like me and you have touched on this a few times this summer, where it seems like there's been more lulls of weeks in this NBA offseason compared to most other summers because of this Kevin Durant trade. I mean, it quite literally put the league on pause as far as offseason transactions go. We haven't seen many trades or even, acquisitions or free agent signings since KD requested a trade months ago. And here we are with Pat Bev calling out KD yesterday on Twitter. KD responded back, kind of making a mockery of it and saying #blame KD, like he's willing to take the blame. But yeah, kind of crazy, I guess that's not a way I thought of it. Selfishly, I guess I didn't think of it from the player's perspective, but Pat Bev has a point. Like,
but the owner, it's also the GMs could make moves. Like they don't have to wait on Kevin Durant either.
Right. Absolutely. But of course, and it's not even half the teams, obviously this is a small sample size we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I don't, if people are questioning signing Pat Bev or doing anything with him, I don't think that has to do with Kevin Durant. Like, I don't know if there's a crazy market for Pat Bev. So if he's talking about himself individually, I think he's a little out of line. But of course, it does affect. It's a domino, and maybe we see things pick back up here. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think we see a crazy spurt of moves now with this news, or you think more of the same until closer to the season?
I think it's going to be more of the same. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like with this whole KD thing. We heard so many teams throughout the whole thing, right? They're in on KD, they're out on KD, and nothing really came of it. It was just, these are potential offers that basically Shams was trying to force feed down our throats. I don't know. Maybe we'll see some other moves come after this. Now that people are like, all right, KD's in that, maybe we have to make moves. But I think teams are going to wait out. It's been a weird offseason. It's kind of been a different one than most.
Yeah.
But I don't see too much happening going forward until probably right before the season.
It's the last thing is the Mitchell trade, and I feel like Danny Ainge is really the one holding everything up with that, because he got a lion's share for Rudy Gobert and wants to do the same. We saw that report earlier in the week.
Right.
They want 5 first-round picks or something that they turned down. He wants all those unprotected, I would assume. It's not swaps and everything else for Mitchell. And he feels like the guy that's holding all the cards now for everything. It feels like everybody else is set unless something happens in training camp that, is a shock to everybody else. But I feel like it's the Mitchell thing, and then we're kind of just waiting on everything else. Like, because even the teams that were in on Durant, none of them were like the teams that we heard, none of them were desperate to get Durant. It was this would be nice. Like
they were refusing to trade like key parts of their team. Yeah. So it wasn't like they were all in, like, let's completely, sell our soul for Durant. They were kind of refusing. So I almost look at like the NBA moves this off season as it's a big deal that happens, then we're going to see a bunch. But until then, they're just going to stay stagnant.
Facts.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the possible teams that KD was involved with, because I want to amplify what I've been saying for weeks. Because Brad Stevens finally came out now that it's over. Well, I don't think he prepared a statement or anything, but he just happened to do like the media rounds the last couple of days. Went on a few local radio shows, talked to journalists, whatever. Chris Forsberg, he works, he's a beat reporter for the Celtics, does some television work for them as well. He had a couple great quotes from Brad yesterday that I then watched the radio interview after, and I just wanted to see Brad's cadence when he said it too. But the first one here says, since the Brogdon trade, we felt really good about our team. We felt really good about building around these guys that we've been building around. We're excited to move forward with our team, and that's really been our focus for a while here. And then this is Brad on the potential to offer Jalen an extension in October. He's a huge core piece of what we're doing and has been for 6 years now. We're excited to hopefully put our best foot forward to have him for a long time.
Yep. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds exactly like, you called it all summer. I think and it's specifically with Jaylen Brown. Like, that's Brad Stevens is not going to give up a building block unless he's sure of it. And there's no way anybody could have been sure about Kevin Durant at this point.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't have an exact quote on the end piece of the radio interview, but it was honestly the most telling quote. I thought that was in that thread of tweets, but it actually wasn't. But Brad, that someone said something to him along the lines of like, oh, it's been a crazy summer, like a lot of noise, a lot of trade rumors, and possible Jaylen Brown transactions or whatever, something along those lines. And Brad was like, it's been pretty quiet over here. Like all that stuff has been being said, but it hasn't been from us. Like he pretty much put it out there that all that stuff that we're hearing about Celtics Nets, Jaylen Brown for KD, it was not coming from, if it was coming from a mouth in the Boston Celtics camp, it wasn't Brad Stevens, and he's the president of basketball operations. So that's really all. That was the last thing I needed to hear on this.
And it's something we need to remember about the Celtics in general. Is I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago too, Dunny. Like, they don't let things out. Like, we had no idea they were in on Malcolm Brogdon when they were in on Malcolm Brogdon. Right. Like, the leaks don't happen from Brad Stevens in that organization. It happened with Danny Ainge.
The Kemba Walker thing came out of nowhere too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. He keeps things tight-lipped. So when you hear rumors about the Celtics, like, you need to have that in the back of your head. Like, it's probably not coming from the Celtics because they don't leak shit. And that's clearly leak everything. And that's just why that's just dominated the news cycle for literally the whole summer, just because they were all leaking shit to Shams through different.
Honestly, to their fault this summer too.
Really, they hurt them. Yeah,
they admitted that they asked for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum at the beginning of this game,
which is outrageous. Yeah. That is just outrageous.
Well, now no one's gonna want to trade with you.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you saw with all these other teams, right? They were saying, "Oh, we want to trade for KD, but we're not going to include so and so," and it was like just core building blocks. Like you saw me just get outraged with the Grizzlies earlier this week when they're like, "Yeah, we want Kevin Durant, but we're not going to trade Desmond Bane or Jaren Jackson or include them in the deal." It's like,
unbelievable.
What do you mean? Like, why? Well, like, if you're actually interested in KD, you're going to include one of these guys. And I get it's part of your young core, right? You have Jackson, you have Williams, you have Bane, and to go around Ja Morant. But it's like, if you actually were all in on KD, you really wanted Durant, you would include these pieces. You'd be like, Desmond Bane, see you later. Jaren Jackson, you're already on the first flight to Brooklyn. The reason teams didn't
package those guys for KD,
and that's what I'm saying.
Let alone not trade either of them.
Yeah, like the Atlanta Hawks was another team. They were like, yeah, we'll include one of like John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, and a pick. So what are we doing? Yeah. Like, what are we doing here? If you're all in on KD, then you're either all in or not. But you can see with these teams, they don't want to give up the building blocks or the pieces of their young core because they're worried about his commitment. And so I'm glad now that it's like, all right, he's just going to be a Brooklyn Net. But all these teams that are quote-unquote interested, they weren't actually interested. Just like, yeah, Durant's a great player. We'd get him for the right price. But Brooklyn's like, you got to pay for a top 5 price. Yeah, exactly. Every team's interested in Durant, but they're not actually interested in Durant, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And Jake, I like the question you put in the doc here. Like, should a team have answered the Nets' demands? And I think what Stevie just explained is, absolutely. So, someone, if you
I was yelling off the rooftops in here about Scotty Barnes for weeks, like the Raptors, that was the most ridiculous thing in the world to me. And Jaren Jackson, I'd have Scotty higher than Jaren Jackson. Honestly, so the Grizzlies thing pissed me off too. But it's just like, what are we talking about? Like, what are we talking about? So yeah, teams should have, but I understand why they didn't. If I'm being honest, like,
go ahead. No, even the Suns, as early as like the beginning rumors of this, like I don't know. I think if they could somehow swing having Booker, KD, and CP, and like that, they obviously, like, there was some deal on the table where that could have happened, but they didn't want to figure out their shit with Ayton yet. They weren't willing to trade like too many picks. They didn't really want to give up Cam Johnson. It's like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, give up Bridges, Johnson, Ayton, and a few picks. You get KD. Yeah.
It is wild though, because it's a microcosm of the league last year, where we talked about it all year. Like, it's a wide open. We had no idea who was going to be in the finals last year. Like, this league, the first year in a long time that the league is wide open. I would say that it's the same going into this year. Yes, Boston and Golden State are going to be the favorites. I don't think that it's a slam dunk. Those are the finals teams. Very well could be, but it's definitely not a slam dunk in any way. And I think that's what it is. All these teams that are good, we're talking about the Grizzlies, Suns, whatever. They think that they can win the title with the team as it is. Like, and it's
even
that's
the Pelicans not giving up BI is crazy to me.
Yeah. But the Pelicans kind of saw what they did at the end of the year, and they're like, wow, if we get Zion back, like, we're a title contender. Like, you got teams all over the place now that saw what they could do. When Ja Morant was healthy, that Grizzlies team gave the Warriors a series. They absolutely could have if he was healthy. Yeah. I mean, you just see so many teams like this. And I think this is great for the NBA because it's the most balanced the league has probably been in a long time. But it's also so many teams are like, hey, we're right there. We're almost there. So they don't want to break up their core for a superstar player, like we've seen in the past, where teams are like, hey, we'll sell our soul just to get this guy for 2 years.
Yeah, actually, I do want to walk back the BI thing a little bit because, like, now I'm thinking about it, it does fall into the way that I think the Celtics organization sees the Celtics. Like, it's probably like
Yeah.
BI is their Jaylen Brown. Like, he's been there for a little bit now. Not as long as JB in Boston, but I mean, he's a proven talent. He's the reason they were where they were last year. He's kind of stepped up while Zion's been down. So yeah, I guess that's a guy where it's like, if you believe in him, he's part of the core, and you don't want to give him up for all the reasons we've said. We understand to a degree why teams are hesitant on Durant. It's the stuff we started the show with. It's could the chemistry get messed up? He's already tried to walk out on a 4-year deal he just signed. Like, these are all the things that make it such a mess. I hope we kind of see a splash of moves.
Me too.
From here on out for the rest of the summer. I think I might be in agreement with you, Stevie. That's probably a long shot. We'd probably just see some minor signings here. Of course, the Lakers, we're still getting reports they're interested in everybody. Still.
They're always interested in everybody.
Naturally.
Yeah. So who knows, man? I mean, we have some more Donovan Mitchell stuff. This has been the stuff that we've just been talking about the last month, it seems, KD and Mitchell. But apparently now there's people within the Knicks organization, no one's been named, that would give up RJ. We were saying last week that we are RJ stans. Yeah, it doesn't fire him immediately. It doesn't seem too likely. Jake, the biggest reason I want to talk about Mitchell today is I saw that the Cavs may have some interest in Donovan Mitchell. I was curious from your part. We've kind of talked about the potential packages other teams could make. You, as the Cavs fan, the Cavs spokesperson on this show, what would you be willing to give up, and what do you think would be too much for a D Mitchell trade? Or do you even want Donovan Mitchell on this team, or do you kind of want to ride what we were just talking about?
I think I'm very, as you know, about my thing about two guards, is I would be horrified of two guards that can't play defense, and that would be Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. But that would be Sexton as much as anything else too. I don't think the Cavs are giving up the draft compensation that Danny Ainge would require from it. Yeah. Like, I think that they would love Sexton and love, Ochai Agbaji or Okoro and somebody else, but I just don't see the picks. Like, the Cavs have been too smart with, like, holding on to assets as long as they can. Now, if we're just talking about get rid of the trade basketball wise, and if it was Sexton and another ulterior piece, yeah, like, I would be about it because it's adding a superstar level scorer to your. I mean, imagine a lineup. I don't care defensively, whatever. If you have whoever with Mobley, Allen, Mitchell, and Garland, like that's formidable. That's a tough starting lineup, but I just don't see them giving up the assets. But I can see why they'd be interested in it, because when else are they going to be able to take a swing unless it's LeBron James in next year.
It's a lot of athleticism on one roster too.
Yeah, just defensively, it worries me more than anything. I know, and that's not the sexy thing to say, and it's definitely like not the fun thing to say, because it would be fun to watch that team together. But I think in the playoffs that Garland and Mitchell would just
it's super important.
Well, and the thing is, too, I just don't think the Cavs would give up the picks. And we saw what Utah got in the Gobert deal. You have to think, if you're Utah, you want more. You want more than what you got from Gobert, right? Like, it's Donovan Mitchell. You're going to want more than what you got for Gobert. And I personally think that the Gobert Timberwolves overpaid. But regardless, that's what the market was set at for Gobert. Mitchell has to be more than that. Anything less than that, everyone's outraged in Utah.
Yeah.
So you have to get more. I just don't think the Cavs would give up that much draft capital.
I don't think you would do this, Jake. I think the organization might ponder this, but I'm guessing you wouldn't be down for a Garland-Mitchell swap.
No. Garland and Mobley are untouchables. And I think that they would ask for Allen, and I think that they would ask for Jared Allen too, and that would be a no-go for me.
You can't give up the throw. Yeah. You can't give up the throw.
What about Sexton, Allen, and like one draft pick?
Personally, I wouldn't. I could see if the organization would want to do it, but
Me
just
too. I think that deal would get done, but I was asking from a fan standpoint.
Defensively is what this team is so strong defensively because of Allen and Mobley, and breaking them up would just. I don't know what Mobley. We kind of saw what Mobley was able to do without Allen defensively. He's not ready to anchor it. I don't think he's going to be ready to this year. I love Jared Allen too. I can't speak objectively about Jared Allen. I just love that man so much. So
I also think too, Utah would want a Okoro probably coming back, and that's one of the better defenders for the Cavs.
I'll give up Okoro every day of the week and twice on Sundays. That's
not
more
panned
than okay.
out, man.
I knew it was bad when we had the draft pod, and I said I didn't know who it was after they drafted him. I was like, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah,
and I felt like I was following that draft decently. And it hasn't panned out. And they picked Abaji because they don't believe in Isaac Okoro. That's the only reason you pick a guy like that.
Abaji is kind of the opposite player.
He's not going to play defense. No, he's not going to play defense. But they need
a bucket, though.
They need the wing buckets more than they need the wing.
That's fair.
I would love a big wing defender, and Okoro kind of serves that role, but he's only 6'5".
Yeah.
But they don't have that secondary creator, and especially if Sexton isn't going to return, which – who the hell knows what's going on?
What's the deal with Sexton, man? I was gonna say before we move on from the Cavs here, I want to talk about that. I saw a crazy stat today. Before I pull it up, what do you guys think is going on there? I mean, he's 23 years old. Hasn't, as far as I know, offer from the Cavs hasn't been made, and then
the rumor was that it was 3 years, $50 million is what they wanted to give him, or 3 years, like $40 million or something.
So he did turn it down.
No. Yeah. He wants like 20 million per, and
he wants starter money. He wants a starting point guard money, and it's unfortunate because of the injuries to him. But Garland's that guy now. Like he has to be okay with that 6-man or even the secondary guard role, and also that type of money. And he's clearly not okay with it.
But they're working on it, because if they were just done with Sexton, then LeVert would be extended by now.
Right.
Because it's one or the other for those two. Like LeVert could get that extension any day of the week, and it'll be about the same terms that they want to sign Sexton to. Mm-hmm. So I think they would prefer Sexton. I think they want to bring him back, but I just don't think they're going to give him. They don't want to hurt their flexibility going into the future at all, and that would potentially do that with a guy who might not fit what they need with their 3 starters.
Who would you rather have, LeVert or Sexton?
Neither. Somebody else.
That's not an option, Jake.
I would personally, I would rather have Colin Sexton. Yeah,
I think so.
I love Colin. That's the thing. Is like none of this is. Colin Sexton is one of my favorite. I was so happy when they got him. Thought he was going to be a star. Still think he has high potential in the league. Maybe not all-star potential, but to be a very good contributor on a championship level team. So. Yeah, I don't think LeVert can do that.
Well, this is the stat. I found it. It's if you guys like good basketball follows out there, Ben Stinar on Twitter, just at Ben Stinar. He tweeted Colin Sexton his last 2 full seasons. So not when he's missed time with injury. His last 2 full seasons, he averaged 20.8 points per game and then 24.3 points per game. Both seasons over 47% field goal percentage. Pretty wild. I mean, that's, he's only 23 years old, like I mentioned at the start. This is a guy who clearly,
I feel like
he can clearly average.
27.
Yeah. He can clearly average over 20 points per game. He's athletic as hell. He's intense. I mean, back to his college days, we've seen the viral clips of Colin Sexton. Borderline acting a fool how hype he is. But that's him. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's a scorer. I would imagine he's a great locker room guy. And here we are, whatever. Maybe he didn't take a liking to the Cavs offer, but it is a little strange. There isn't more buzz or hype around Sexton, especially with this quiet offseason we're having.
It is weird. I think he's probably a microcosm of the KD stuff too. What's up?
I have a little breaking news. I don't know if we've seen this, but it's just KD stuff. So I guess it's not worthy of breaking news. But Sham said this on the Kevin Durant trade talks on the Rich Eisen show. The best offer I'm told the Nets had on the table was from the Celtics, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and a first-round pick. It's like even after all of this, I think Shams is still lying through his teeth.
Yeah.
I
think so too.
Like, I think the stuff that I just read that Brad Stevens said, like, why, like, that doesn't align. And why would Brad Stevens lie about that at all?
Yeah,
like, it's just crazy to me, man. I don't know why I stopped the show to even read that. That just made me angry.
No, because it pissed you off. You're like, I got to share this.
Yeah.
Let's talk Chet quick. Let's talk Chet before we get into the WNBA playoffs, because Chet torn ligaments in his foot, no timetable to return. It's terrible to see a rookie, any guy with this kind of injury, but especially a rookie, and especially a rookie big man who, I mean, big men just with these injuries, it usually doesn't bode well, especially when it happens early in their career. What does it mean for OKC? What does it mean for Chet going forward, Dunny?
Yeah, I mean, I have here in our notes that I think it means a little bit more to the individual because, I mean, let's be real, the Western Conference is still very good. The Thunder do not have the means to be, barely, we could have talked play in 8th seed maybe if Chet was healthy and, we saw Giddy progress and SGA keeps doing his thing. But let's be real, like, probably weren't a playoff team, definitely not a contender. So I don't think it means all that much for the Thunder unless these injuries continue for Chet. I feel bad for Chet though, man, because as overhyped as people were in some of those summer league games, like it's only going to be to his downfall now because everyone hyped him up so much. So the people who weren't hyping him up then and hated that people were hyping him up are just going to double down equally as hard with this injury. And they're going to be like, oh, like he didn't even perform in his rookie year. And like, what if he comes back and he doesn't look himself? Then he's going to need the full season to recover. I just think the way that sports are, and especially the NBA and NBA Twitter and the media, like something like this outside of physically can harm a guy's career. So that part I feel for him. I think it sucks. But yeah, I think it hurts the individual way more than it hurts the team here. And hopefully for both parties, it's something that doesn't have them sidelined for the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, Dunny. You guys know how much I love Chet. As a college basketball fan, I loved Chet Holmgren, and people gave him, unfair criticism because he was on Gonzaga. And they're like, oh, he didn't play anybody. He's not going to be good against physical bigs. And he did struggle against Banchero earlier in the year. But the big thing with Chet for me is he was so mobile for a big man. He could block it down on one end and then take it up the court. He was able to create, so in Chet, he was able to dribble SG, and having a foot injury like this, that is a big kind of red flag concern of what his mobility is going to be like going forward. And for Chet, it's, he's already not undersized because he's 7'1", but he's skinny. Everyone knows he's skinny. Yeah. Everyone makes jokes about how skinny he is. Now you're already starting with the injuries. I know it's not a leg injury, but it's a foot injury. It's just not a great sign. And because when I scouted Chet, the biggest thing for me was his mobility as a big man. Like, I haven't seen a big man be able to get up and down the court as easily as he did. And now not being able to have that and having to recover from an injury. I don't know if he's going to play this year. I don't think we know yet when he's going to return. Yeah. But it's just really concerning because if he returns and he's even a little bit sluggish, that takes a big hit on him because he's not a big, strong guy yet. The reason he was drafted so highly, the reason he's such a top prospect is because he was so quick for a big man, where he didn't have to be stronger than you. He could still block your shot just by reacting quicker. And then the vice versa on the offensive end, where he's not going to back down into you like a normal big man. This guy's going to create his own shot. He's going to beat you on that first step. Like, he has a quick first step for a big man. Not a lot of guys do that. Now you have a foot injury in the play. It's really tough to see. And I also, too, this is just me being selfish, I wanted to see Chet, Giddy, and Shai play with each other. I really wanted to see SGA, Giddy, and Chet. I thought that would have been a fun kind of like not lesser known big three. It really would have got OKC kind of more on the national stage of these guys are fun to watch. And now without Chet, the hype's still there a little bit for Giddy, but it's not the same.
You want to talk about the surprise person who might get moved next? I think it's SGA at this point.
Yeah,
because he's out of the timeline at this point. I mean,
know.
and like you said, there's no chemistry that they're going to be able to build unless Chet can come back, at some point during the season. But he feels like a guy that maybe he's going to want out too. Like he never wanted to. He hasn't been able to hit free agency. He hasn't been able to do any of that stuff yet. I don't know when his deal's up off the top. I'm not looking at it or anything, but just seems like he could be a guy that wants to look at something else too. And it would make sense because like he's not. Why would he want to sit through this long ass rebuild with a guy who might not be healthy? It makes a lot of sense. All right, let's wrap up quick here. Done, Stevie. My Sky pulled it out last night. It was a little tense for a second. I hate that Game 3 was in New York. That just like I get the travel stuff.
The travel,
put Game 1 in New York then.
Right.
Like I know that's weird to have Game 1 not not have a guaranteed 2 games at home or whatever, but
I think that's why they have to do it that way, right?
It
is weird seeing a winner go home game for the lower seed, like in their place.
And New York's they're a rowdy ass crowd too. Like that's not an easy environment to go in. That's probably one of the tougher environments in the whole WNBA to go into is in the Barclays. Yep. But yeah, the Sky impressed last night. They
impressed. Candace Parker. I mean, she's drink from the fountain of youth. Another near triple double. Yes, I think it was 14, 13, and 8. Yep. But the big thing for the Sky for me was just defensively. The first half, New York was able to get their shots. They were able to get their looks. Second half, the Sky locked in defensively. And I know I love Sabrina Ionescu. She's a great player. She's going to be a star in this league for years to come. But they really bullied her in the second half. Double teams constantly switching on her, not giving her an open look. And she started to force bad passes, bad shots, had a lot of turnovers. The Sky, I mean, they're a good team. I would not be surprised if they get back to the finals. They're going to have a tough second round matchup between the winner of tonight's game between the Sun and Dallas, Connecticut and Dallas. But I don't know. The Sky really impressed me. I thought New York, especially at home, the first half looked like, hey, New York's in this game. And then what, Jake? I think we were talking about a 16-0 run by the Sky in the third quarter.
It was like 68-63 when she hit that crazy ass 3, Sabrina, that the highlight that all went out. And then after that, shit just flipped. Like they were like, all right, we're not letting this stuff happen anymore.
That highlight was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
Shot. It was a crazy shot.
But that was literally the moment. Like after that, it was something like a 20-5 or 22-5 run or something. They went on something crazy like that. And that's the championship medal, and that's a Liberty team that's just not there yet. I mean, they have some pieces in place, but the Sky,
and they're a young team. They're a young team,
and the Sky are ready to win They're trying to defend a title, but they're ready to win a title again this year. They've been like that all season long, but they still have like that. That game 1 just worries me a lot because that's been them all season. They've had these games where they just. I don't know what happens. They just fall apart. Like they just look like a broken basketball team for 3 quarters or whatever. And that's what I'm worried about once they get to these later rounds. Who are they matching up with next? Is it
it's either going to be tonight? Connecticut or Dallas winner tonight. If you're pulling for the Sky, you probably want Dallas because they're going to have a big size advantage on Dallas.
I never want
That's the thing. Connecticut's got a big size advantage, but Dallas, they switched up their starting lineup from game 1 to game 2, really caught Connecticut off guard. I think Connecticut scored 7 points in the first quarter in game 2, and then they kind of came back a little bit in the second half. A lot of it was kind of in garbage time when the game was out of hand, but it's going to be interesting because game 1, Connecticut dominated. They got what they wanted, Jonquel Jones down low, and then game 2, Dallas switched up their starting lineup, made Connecticut uncomfortable, kind of put them in bad defensive matchups, and dominated game 2. So I'm curious with game 3. Although if you're pulling for the Sky, Jake, you'd probably rather have Dallas win. I want Connecticut just because I think it'd be a great series. But I don't know. We'll see. The Sky is the most experienced team in the WNBA. So when they're locked in on the defensive side, you saw against New York, there's really no one who can, get what they want offensively against them. Connecticut would be a great matchup, though. I know you don't want it. I'd love Connecticut versus Chicago.
No, but I'm not. Nothing's guaranteed with this team this year. I don't think, anyways. So I think either of those series are going to be tough for them. But we're still on the collision course, that we've been looking at all year. So who knows? It's gonna be fun. It should be a fun game tonight too. But last night was definitely, it was a great atmosphere in New York. Glad the Sky pulled it out there at the end. It's getting exciting. The semis are gonna be great once we get them all settled out too. Any last words before we finish?
Yeah, before we finish entirely, Courtney Vandersloot. That's got to be one of the coolest names in the WNBA.
Oh, it's the best.
It's great.
And she fits the name perfectly. She's just a facilitator of the offense. She gets everybody involved. She's one of the better playmakers, I think, in the entire WNBA. But Courtney Vandersloot, another one, experienced, right? Just they have so many experienced players.
She's on the older side too. She's like in her early 30s.
Yeah, this is a vet ass team. They are in it to win this year, last year, and this year. Like, and then it's gonna be tough times. And the Parker, I mean, Candace Parker just brings such a different element, and I think it's one of those like Kobe mentality things where she's just like gets into a zone where she's like, I'm not letting us lose this game. Like, I will do whatever I need to do. And last night it was not, and it's not, she's not as prolific of a scorer as she used to be anyways anymore, but it wasn't scoring. It was doing everything else, just willing it. Yeah. She still can't pull it out.
She did that all series. The biggest, I guess, compliment I can say about Chicago Sky is and you saw it last night, they turn turnovers into baskets the other way. Every time New York made a mistake, Chicago punished them. Every single time.
That was all of game two.
Exactly. Whether it was a bad look, a turnover, it doesn't matter. Or they were out of position defensively, Chicago made them punish. And that's just what experienced teams do. Yeah. So that was the biggest, I think, praise I can give to the Chicago Sky. When they played New York in game 3, New York played well in the first half, but they had a lot of turnovers, and Chicago made them pay on every single one. Just transition baskets, getting 3-on-2 runs down the court. It was just, you're going to turn the ball over against us, we're scoring an easy one on the other end, and they did that all night.
That's facts. And it was when I was sitting there watching, I was doing the cap show during the beginning of game 2 on Saturday, and I just kept looking up, and every time I looked up, it was a Sky fast break, just like layup, like over and over again. I was like, holy shit. And that's exactly what you spoke to, like just that defensive intensity they can bring is different. All right, well that's it for tonight. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1, always joined by Donovan Holden, and now always joined by some guy named Steve. Second episode in the books with Stevie. It's going to be a fun year. We're going to have a blast. Next week, we have division previews. We are within range of previewing divisions. That's how close we are getting. We are starting with the NBA champion Golden State Warriors and the Pacific Division. I wonder who we're going to end up talking a lot about there. Probably not the Warriors as much as anything else, but we're going to get a lot of things going on there. Division preview start. We'll start with Pacific, and we'll go from there. But thank you guys. Stay hydrated. Enjoy your Wednesday evening. Have a great night, folks.
Later, guys.